I should have ended my shift earlier. My wife, Samira, had called twice, asking when I'd be home. Our daughter, Mariam, had fallen asleep waiting for the box of chocolate I had promised her in the morning while setting out for work. But I told myself, just one more ride. One last passenger before I called it a night. The request came through. I looked down at my phone. Pick up, Jamlek. Destination, Mari. Not too far. Maybe 30 minutes if the streets were clear. It was past 11 p.m., and Cairo at this hour was quieter, the honking and chaos of the day settling into the belly of the night. I pulled up outside an upscale apartment building. A rich-looking woman in a black abaya and hijab stood by the curb, arms folded, waiting. When she slid into the back seat, I caught a faint whiff of alcohol. That was my first sign that something was off. A proper hajia, drinking? It didn't sit right. She didn't speak at first, just sat stiffly, staring out the window. Then, her voice cut through the silence. Turn on the AC. I glanced at her in the rearview mirror. It's cold outside, I said, adjusting the heater instead. Did I ask for the heater? She snapped. Turn on the AC. I exhaled slowly and did as she said. Cold air blasted through the car, sending a chill up my arms. We drove in silence for a few minutes before she spoke again. What's that music you were playing? Just good to, I said. Change it. It's depressing. I bit my tongue and switched to something else. She was that kind of passenger. The ones who act like they own the car just because they're paying. But I'd driven wars. I knew when to pick my battles. Then, another question. Where are you from? Cairo, I answered. Married? Yes. She scoffed. Of course, you are. I didn't know what that was supposed to mean, but I let it slide. By now, the alcohol on her breath was unmistakable. The way she sat, the way she spoke, it was like she was fighting something inside her. We passed Cornichel Mari, but she didn't tell me to stop. Ajia, where exactly are we going? I asked. She leaned forward slightly. Just keep driving. I'll tell you. Now, that wasn't normal. Most people had a set destination, even if they changed their mind later. But she wanted to drift. Mari is behind us, I pointed out. You've passed the two places you mentioned. And she raised an eyebrow. Are you working for free? Just drive. I'll pay you. Something about her tone, the entitlement, made me grip the wheel tighter. But I was exhausted, and arguing with a rich drunk woman in the middle of the night wasn't how I wanted to end my shift. Minutes passed. Cairo's streets stretched endlessly before us, the orange glow of streetlights flickering over the windshield. Do you love your wife? She asked suddenly. I frowned. Yes. Have you cheated on her? No. Her voice hardened. Don't fucking lie to me. I met her gaze in the mirror. There was rage in her eyes, something wild and untamed. That was it. I was done. I pulled over near 6th October Bridge, put the car in park, and turned to face her. Look, Hajia, I think you should find another ride. The click of a gun stopped my breath. She had pulled a pistol from beneath her hijab, pressing it against the back of my head. Drive. A shiver ran down my spine. My mind raced. Was she a carjacker? A runaway? A killer? I swallowed hard, forcing my voice to stay calm. Please, put that away. I said, drive. I gripped the wheel, my hands damp with sweat, and pressed the gas. The night had taken a terrifying turn, and now I didn't know if I would make it home at all. If you are still reading up till this moment, then it is because you found this story interesting. Now, help me by hitting the subscribe button. The story is just getting started. Now, let's get back to the story. The cold metal of the pistol burned against my skin. My hands trembled as I gripped the wheel, forcing myself to keep driving. My thoughts scattered in 100 directions. Who was this woman? A thief? A killer? Someone sent to take me out for reasons I didn't even understand? No. She didn't ask for money. Didn't take my phone. She just wanted me to drive. The roads ahead stretched into endless darkness. We had been circling Cairo aimlessly for nearly an hour now, passing through Garden City, Old Cairo, and even near Al-Azhar Park before looping back. I stole a glance at her in the rearview mirror. She wasn't watching me. Her gaze was locked on the window, like she was searching for something that didn't exist. "Why are you looking at me?" she snapped suddenly. I flinched. I wasn't. Liar. She shifted in her seat, and I braced myself, expecting the worst. Instead, she let out a bitter laugh. "Go on, Abdul. Say it. You think I'm crazy, don't you?" I stayed silent. She must have picked my name from the driver profile bar while she was booking the ride. She leaned forward slightly, her voice low but audible and menacing. "Answer me." I kept my tone steady. "I don't know what to think." She smirked. "Good answer." We drove in silence again. Cairo at this hour was a city of shadows. Abandoned sidewalks, distant headlights, the occasional street cat darting between alleys. I had never felt so alone. Then, another question. "What do you think of me?" I hesitated. The wrong answer could cost me my life. "I don't know you," I said carefully. She exhaled sharply, like she was expecting something else. Typical man. I swallowed. "Hajia, please. Just tell me where we're going." She didn't respond. Instead, she pulled a cigarette from the folds of her abaya, lit it with an expensive-looking lighter, and took a slow drag. The smell of tobacco and perfume filled the car. The sight of it threw me off. A drunk Hajia with a gun, drinking, smoking, and dragging me around Cairo in the middle of the night? This was no ordinary woman. She finally spoke. "Men are liars. All of you." I didn't respond. She took another drag and exhaled through her nose. "Do you know what it feels like to be betrayed, Abdul?" I kept my eyes on the road. "No." Her voice turned ice cold. "Must be nice." I gripped the wheel tighter. My mouth was dry. My mind was a storm. How the hell was this going to end? A sudden sharp laugh broke the silence. She shook her head, tapping ash onto the floor of my car like she owned the place. Then she whispered, almost to herself, "I should have killed him instead." My stomach clenched, and it wasn't because I was hungry. Killed who? I couldn't ask. I couldn't risk setting her off. I needed a plan. I needed to get out of this alive. The gun stayed pressed against my neck. My mind was running in circles, trying to figure out how this would end. Hajia exhaled another cloud of smoke, tapping her ash onto my dashboard this time. My jaw clenched, but I stayed quiet. "Pull over on the bridge," she said suddenly. I froze. "What?" Her voice was calm, almost bored. "Drive to Kasra El Nil Bridge." I hesitated. That bridge stretched over the Nile, the waters below dark and endless. Now, I obeyed. I didn't have a choice. Minutes later, I pulled up to the bridge. The city lights reflected off the river, casting airy shadows. The streets were mostly empty, just a few late-night drivers speeding past. She reached over, turned off the engine, and gestured with the gun. "Get out!" My pulse pounded in my ears. I was going to die. Some drunk, broken-hearted Hajia was about to blow my brains out over a man I had never met. "Haja, please." She cocked the gun. I said, "Get out." I obeyed. The cold night air hit me immediately. Cairo could be unforgiving at night, the wind cutting like a knife. She stepped out, her black abaya flowing around her. She pointed the gun at me, then gestured toward the edge of the bridge. "Go." I swallowed hard. "Hajia, listen." "Shut up," she screamed. Her voice echoed over the water. "You think you are innocent? You think all men aren't the same?" I raised my hands. "I don't even know what this is about." She took a shaky breath, her body trembling. Then her voice cracked. "I gave him everything, Abdul. Everything." My chest tightened. "Who?" I asked gently. She let out a bitter laugh. "My husband. My sweet, perfect husband." I stayed silent. I took him from the gutters, cleaned him up, dressed him, taught him how to behave like a real man. Her grip on the gun tightened, and then he took my money and ran away with some young thing, left me like I was nothing. I exhaled slowly. This wasn't about me. This was about him. She was angry, betrayed, broken, and I was just the unlucky man she took it out on. Her lips trembled as she lifted the gun higher. "Say your last prayer." Panic rose in my throat, but then her hand shook. The gun wavered. Her breathing became ragged. She was breaking. This was my chance. I am sure this is the most captivating story you have read all week. If you haven't subscribed at this point, then you are up to something. I took a slow, steady breath. "Think, Abdul." Hajia's grip on the gun was unsteady. Her eyes, filled with rage minutes ago, now looked lost, like she was fighting herself. I took a careful step toward her. "Hajia, put the gun down." She blinked, as if just realizing where she was. The night wind swept her abaya, making her look even smaller than before. She let out a shaky laugh. "Why? So you can run." I shook my head. "I'm not running. I just want to talk." Her fingers twitched on the trigger. My stomach clenched, but I kept my voice calm. "Listen, you are not going to shoot me." She narrowed her eyes. "Oh, and why is that?" I gestured to her trembling hands. "Because you don't want to. If you did, I'd be dead already." Her expression cracked. For the first time, her anger seemed to drain away, leaving nothing but exhaustion. "Do you know what it feels like to be nothing, Abdul?" she whispered. I didn't answer right away. Then, softly, I said, "Yes." She scoffed. "No, you don't. You have a wife, a child, a home." I swallowed, and a life that I almost lost tonight. Her grip on the gun loosened slightly. "Hajia, listen to me. I get it. He broke you. He betrayed you. But this isn't the way." Tears welled in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. I should just end it, then jump. Let the Nile take me. No. Her lip trembled. Why not? I stepped even closer. Because you deserve better than that. You fought for him. Now fight for yourself. Her breath hitched. For a moment, I thought she might pull the trigger, but then her arm dropped. The gun hung loosely by her side. I exhaled slowly. Let's get out of here. She didn't move. I reached for the gun gently, my hands careful, steady. She let me take it. And just like that, the danger was over. The drive back was quiet. She sat in the back, staring out the window, her face unreadable. She didn't ask any more questions. When we finally pulled up to the spot where I picked her up, she turned to me. You saved my life tonight, Abdul. I shook my head. You saved your own life. She gave a sad smile. Then, without another word, she stepped out of the car and disappeared into the night. I sat there for a long time, gripping the wheel, my body still trembling from everything that had happened. Then I whispered, Alhamdulillah. And I drove home. Please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Tell me where you are viewing from.